They say Christmas time is the time for giving. Well, I'm giving you guys another collab show. I got my guy Casey Pazzalia from the Virginia Gameday Podcast. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Virginia, your daily podcast on the Virginia Cavaliers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You are Locked On Virginia, your daily podcast on the You are
Good day, viewers and listeners. I'm your host, Big Law Lawrence Johnson, and welcome to the Locked On Virginia Cavaliers podcast, the first place to come to get your Wahoo Fix every day as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Our title sponsor today is our episode is of Locked On Virginia is brought to you by Sling TV. Sling has something for everyone, especially when it comes to college football coverage with a massive lineup of games across the ACC, Big Ten, Pac-12, and SEC. I can always catch the games I want on Sling, and now you can too. Check out Sling TV now to see the massive lineup of games that you want all season long on Sling. The TV you love for the price you'll love. Try it today. So yes, everybody, as you can see, the date is 12/22/22. I got my man Casey Pazzalia in the house from Virginia Gameday Podcast. And like I said yesterday, when I had Jackie on, now I have my man Casey on. This is the season for giving. So I'm giving you guys, to give you viewers, listeners, and fans and friends variety. So my man KC, what's going on? We're going to talk some Wahoo sports. We're going to talk some transfer portal. We're going to talk some national signing information. Then we'll talk about the basketball team. But how's everything been going, buddy?
Good, man. I'm loving this holiday season. I can't wait to get back at it and get the UVA basketball team back on a winning streak. It's going to happen. I feel it.
I do too. I mean, I feel like there's been I think that the team definitely needs to, number one, they need to start hitting their shots. And that's like the major thing. But before we get a little deeper in the basketball, let's go ahead and knock some of this football stuff out. I mean, right now, National Signing Day, for all colleges right now, like I said, it is like Christmas because you're actually unwrapping gifts and you're getting that Nintendo that you wanted, you're getting that PlayStation you wanted, or you're getting that Xbox you wanted. And some teams aren't getting anything. They're getting a coal in their stocking. So what end of the spectrum do you think the University of Virginia wound up on, when it comes to getting gifts this holiday season, when it comes to the National Signing Day?
I think they got a pretty good grade, and I think that they got what they asked for. They got a quarterback at a high school. They've got a quarterback coming in through the transfer portal. They finally got their first Clemson guy to come over, skill position player. That's great. They kept it in state. There was a handful of guys that were from Virginia, including our biggest recruit, Cameron, and a 4-star who was up against some real big schools to go and get him. And it's great that we pulled through and closed. So, yeah, they kept it in state. They hit some key positions. At the same time, I always try and be positive. Maybe you can tell me a little bit of if they didn't do as well as I think they did.
My personal opinion about it is I think they did well based off of where they were. Based off of what was going, exactly. Based off of what they had going on, with the season. First of all, let's not even talk about the tragedy yet.
Yeah.
Based off of the season where they were, the turmoil, the whispers of just, like a mutiny kind of going on where, the players didn't agree with the coach and other coaches maybe not seeing eye to eye, other position coaches, and just, your main leader, signal caller on the offensive end, your quarterback just could not get right,
Mm-hmm.
with your offense. So that created a ton of turmoil. And then the offensive line having the issues of just trying to, stabilize the ship, which, it stabilized a little bit in the middle, but the beginning and the end, it just never came together. The offensive line struggled, in pass protection, and that's, when you're trying to pass the ball in college football, which is, unless you're Army, Navy, or one of these service academies, you got to throw the ball.
Yeah.
You got to throw the ball, and you got to throw it efficiently, and we just could not do that. And I think that, the tragedy combined that with the way the season went and all the other things that were going on, I didn't really see a way out to be positive. How it could be a positive outcome, until now.
Yeah. Another thing, they need to recruit some of the guys who might leave. Like Nick Jackson, who could go. He's not committed to anyone yet. I'd like to see them pull some of those guys back out of the transfer portal. And another thing that's kind of flying under the radar, a lot of the fourth year seniors who got the extra COVID year are coming back. The
Mm-hmm.
Sackett Woods, Chico Bennett. There's some good names that
Cam Robinson.
we may have thought were going to be gone that are back. So that's kind of like adding talent too, because if you were thinking they were not going to be able to play again and they're back, that's big.
Cohen King, and
Paul
we had
Keary,
9. We had 9.
Josh Ahern.
Josh Ahern, Hunter Stewart,
Yep.
Sackett Wood, Grant Mish. I mean, I'm
Yep.
thinking, you know, there's a player that I'm forgetting now that I was curious. I mean, kind of like an unsung hero, but I'll try to remember the name by the end of the
And
show. But
Clary?
no, Antonio Clary. Yes, I got him coming back. But there's a player that no one has really talked about that still has some, that can take, this opportunity to come back as an upperclassman, and I just can't bring the name up right now.
Okay.
Can't remember, but we do have. I think it was 9 players who actually wound up coming back. And Famui is
No,
coming back
familiar,
as
yeah.
well. Famui's coming back. You also have Jameer Carter. Your
Oh, yeah.
big defensive tackle. So it's like outside of the corners, on the outside, you have, a good portion of your defense coming back without the man in the middle, Nick Jackson.
Yeah.
Hopefully this will pull Nick Jackson back into the fold, and he can see that they had a pretty good defense, last year, and if he could get another year with these guys, maybe the defense could wind up being really special with him there. I just find it being difficult without him there. And then of course, with the addition of the 4-star Cam Robinson, they're going to let him play. There's no way they're going to redshirt him. They're going
Oh,
to get
no,
his
yeah.
talent. They're going to get his talent out there. So who knows, what this team could be. But with Chico Bennett coming back, Cam Butler, Cam Butler coming back, Paulie Keary. My guy from Michigan State,
Oh,
from
Camper.
Jack Camper.
Jack
That's who I'm
Camper.
thinking about. Will Camper come back? He's another one that I had in mind, thinking, will he have an opportunity? Will he take that opportunity to come back? But the defense, for the most part, looks like it's going to be solid. Now, the offensive side of the ball, it's to me, it's still a crapshoot. What do you think is going to happen on the offensive side of the ball?
Well, it's either going to be at this point, you'd imagine it would be either Jay starting at quarterback or the Monmouth transfer Tony Muskett. I think that will probably be the battle as of right now, unless they go out and get another transfer quarterback, which I can possibly see happening. The transfer portal is loaded with guys. There's a dude from North Texas who just went in recently, who's had a lot of success. He's 29 years old. He played baseball for like 6 years and then went to football later in life, like Brandon Weeden did at Oklahoma State.
Chris Winkie, wasn't that a
Chris
Chris Winkie?
Yeah.
Chris Winkie's the same thing. Yeah.
So
Hey, does he have 1 year left?
Yeah, 1 year left. He threw
I
33
would think.
touchdowns last year. He's 29 years old. I mean, he's just a guy I saw. But, they could go out and get another guy who maybe played at the FBS level instead of the FCS level to kind of add to that quarterback room, because that's such a big thing. The quarterback room right now is a transfer who hasn't been here, and Jay, who's started
a baseball player.
Yeah. So I would like to see them bring in somebody with more experience at the FBS level, and just to add to the room. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the other big question, of course, is what's going to go down with the offensive coaching staff. You'd know better than me. There was certainly a disconnect last year, right?
Absolutely.
But was that disconnect Brennan being stuck in the old ways in the old system and not being able to flip the switch, and maybe Kitchings with a different quarterback is fantastic. It's hard to predict.
Great question, and we'll answer that in a second. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From professional football to college bowl season to basketball and World Cup. We've got it all at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you will even find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. As your question, you said, as far as the offensive side of the ball, yes. First of all, we need to get an offensive line coach. Before we even talk about putting the offense together, we need to get somebody to run the big men. I'm curious to see where they go with that. I think, speaking with Jackie, kind of behind the scenes, she was saying that they had some guys targeted, but it's kind of a financial thing right now. Is the money going to be there for certain coaches that may be on the radar? For Coach Elliott, I think that's kind of where they are. Maybe the funds aren't there, for a particular coach, offensive line coach they want, which I can see that as well. Becoming the major issue. You said Coach Kitchens as well. I'm not sure. I'm totally throwing, throwing the caution to the wind with this, but I don't know if he's gonna call the plays, and if he does, how much of more of an influence, or how much will there be, the possibility of another coach calling plays. Coach Hagens also, who, there's rumors flying around. I'm not going to really say, what the rumors are, as far as, because I don't have it confirmed, but, could be, Coach Hagens maybe is not seeing eye to eye with some things, for some philosophies, which is not which is not, ridiculous to hear, that coaches don't see eye to eye on certain things, on your staff. You kind of want, other coaches that will challenge you. That is, that if you don't see eye to eye, you don't want yes men. You want somebody who's gonna kind of tell you, the way it is, behind closed doors, without saying, oh yeah, you're great, everything works, and all that. You want somebody that's gonna kind of not necessarily challenge your authority, but maybe challenge some of the philosophies, and challenge, some of those things.
It's interesting you say that too, because Coach Touche was one of the few coaches who actually stayed from Broncos staff, and now he's gone. Right. So maybe there is that, possibility of the leftover coaches that were kept not seeing eye to eye with the new regime. But like you said, that's not always a bad thing. To fuel the creative process, it's great to have different life experiences, different thought processes, and it's all about coming to an agreement and compromising and working through those things. So it's helpful, but the end result needs to be something productive and not fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like you said, also the end result has to show a measure of success on the field, which did
Sure.
not happen this year.
Yeah.
You know, Coach Higgins, I mean, this is just my personal opinion. I don't know if Coach Higgins would want to do it. I think Coach Higgins, if he's up to it, deserves a shot to call plays. I
He
mean, he
played
is
quarterback,
wide
played in the
receiver.
NFL. Like,
That's
I
right.
mean, I think he'll bring a fresh take on offensive play calling, and I think he's probably an innovative play caller. We're seeing in the NFL it going younger and younger, and the Cliff Kingsburys and Matt LaFleur's and Kellen Moore's. Marquise Higgins is right in line with a
Well,
younger offensive mind.
well, I think Coach Higgins also is a hot commodity out there on the coaching
Oh, you
circuit.
know it.
So, I mean, which is why I think they gave him the title of assistant head coach, which
Mm-hmm.
pretty much means he's like second in command,
Yeah.
of the, of the coaches. So I would definitely, approach him and see if he wants an opportunity to call plays. Not saying that Coach Kitchens isn't involved in any of the office because but he is the OC. Maybe there's a collaborative effort between them two a little bit more. Coach Higgins has been the wide receivers coach at Virginia for the longest time,
Yeah.
and I think maybe the air raid system, that they were coaching in for the last few years with Coach Bronco,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that is something I think maybe just the systems didn't mesh. And
Yeah.
some coaches, just like players, it takes them a while to get acclimated with the system. Not, players aren't the only ones who have issues with changing systems. Just like players, coaches have to, be in it and then they have to teach it,
Yeah.
which can be more difficult sometimes than actually going out and physically doing it, and
Mm-hmm.
executing it, being able to translate it and, and get it when you learn a whole new system. Of course, Coach Elliott's system is a pro style system, as opposed to the air raid. So I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a good conversation to have moving forward, looking towards the spring game. Of course, we also, talked with Jackie about the transfer portal, players
Yeah.
that are out there. Anything you wanted to comment on the transfer portal and players that uh, you might want to see come in, or any news you heard out there?
Well, I'd like to see them, like I mentioned earlier, kind of recruit some of the guys who are in the portal. Because if you remember when Coach Elliott came in initially, we had all linemen that hit the road were in the portal when he came in. And I think one of his regrets was not recruiting the guys who were, still technically Virginia players in the portal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so you don't want to make that same mistake twice. A guy like John Paul Flores, a dude we brought in last year. He could be a guy who could flip and come back. Nick Jackson, of course, like you mentioned, and then just adding more pieces from other schools. And they made a great pickup in getting Malik Washington from Northwestern. Kind of fills that void
Dejon
that
Parker as well.
on the line. Uh, we had a overflow of wide receivers going into last year, and now they have a big void to fill. So bringing in Malik Washington is great, and I hope they can maybe pick up some more. What besides Malik Washington, what is our wide receiver room looking like next year from a proven standpoint? Is Malachi Fields going to be
I believe so. Malachi Fields, who is an absolute stud, he got on the
stud?
field later on in the season, and he looked great. It's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a little bit thin because you're losing Billy Kemp. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Lord rest his soul, we lost Lavelle Davis. You're
Mm-hmm.
losing Dontavian Wicks. Did I already say Billy Kemp? Yeah, Keaton Thompson. So, your top four guys are not going to be there this year. So you're going to have to rebuild. You're going to have Malachi Fields. You're going to the wide receiver from Northwestern you just talked about. They just signed. They also have the young man from South Carolina, the same school that Lavelle Davis is from.
Yep.
The freshman. He's going to have to. He may get some time as well. And they got some other younger guys that were chomping at the bit to get on the field. But yeah,
Demick Starling.
Demick Starling, he should be
He should
there.
be back. Yeah.
Yeah, he should be back. So it'll be interesting to see how the receiver room goes. I think the tight ends are going to have to definitely be a huge part of this offense moving forward, especially with the receivers being thin. You think
Yeah.
about my guy, Sackett Wood.
Yep.
That's one of my favorite guys. He's one of the most underused assets on this team in the passing game. I think that we'll see him get more. I think when you see him get more time, the offense will move. Will move the chains a little bit better coming in next year. And Grant Mish as well, having him out there and being, well, I guess, a little bit more the run blocker kind of a tight end. I think they need to be more tight end centric, work the middle of the field a little bit more. So
Yeah. Well,
it'll be interesting.
Sackett Wood,
Mm-hmm.
when he got a chance later in the season, he had a big game. I can't remember who it was against, but he had against North Carolina, against UNC.
Mm-hmm.
He had a big game when he got the opportunity. And in that tight end room there, UVA brought in a big legacy with Takai Kirby.
Yeah, Takai Kirby, that's right.
That's awesome. And I want to note that Des Kitchings, for all of his, people talk,
difficulties,
the shortcomings in the play calling and all that this year. I think he did do a good job on the recruiting trail, and I think Takai Kirby was one of those guys who he helped land.
Absolutely, and one of the legacy players of the son of the great Terry Kirby, who was a big time player there at UVA. But let's see where all of this falls. I was skeptical and I was worried about the spring game. Now I'm excited to see what some of these new players look like. They took in 23 players on the for the roster, and they said Jackie was telling me that there are 3 more players that they may target, and there may be 3 more linemen out of the transfer portal that they may try to bring in. So, and there may be another wide receiver or so out there. Then of course they bought in the running back from Clemson, the first Clemson player to come over. Which I think is something that this squad needs.
Yeah, sure.
And he's a runner. He looks great. He looks great. But yeah. So we're definitely looking forward to it. You and we're getting ready for baseball season as well. I got to throw that out there before we get into basketball. You're gonna do some work with me.
Totally.
Might even be my Seven Cities baseball guy, to where you cover my baseball because you're there on the grounds, or right there close to the grounds. Whenever there's a game, we can do these reports and come back in. So
absolutely,
it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome. We got a championship caliber team there as well. And also I got the lacrosse. So lacrosse is some of your cup of tea as well for you, which is another championship program, on the ground. So, we're going to have a lot of fun in the spring. But before we get to the spring, let's get into basketball. So the men's basketball team, 8-2 now, lost back-to-back games. Houston, I understand. Miami, I don't understand. What was your feeling watching that game, man?
Well, going in, I had a bad feeling about the game going in to start, right? I kind of figured that's a long trip, and it was a quick turnaround from Houston. They play Houston on Saturday. They're on a flight on Monday to go to Florida, and then they're playing Tuesday. So that's tough. It's I don't want to make excuses, but that was a quick turnaround in a tough place. And Miami's a good team. I mean, they have their backcourt is fantastic. Nigel Pack, Isaiah Wong. Isaiah Wong was, even for Reese Beekman, who isn't 100%, but he was doing whatever he wanted, Isaiah Wong. So you got to tip your hat to him.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, listen, we were we were so high in the beginning of the season on how great of a shooting team this was. They were like, oh, we got all this shooting that we didn't have last year, all this depth, and then it just hasn't been there the last 2 games. Bennett Vanderplas had a really, really tough game against Houston. It was almost like, he shot us out of the game at points. But then he
Right.
came back. He bounced back against Miami and was basically all of their offense. It's just, I need to get Armand back to where he was the first couple of games.
Man, he is having a terrible stretch. It was almost like he went, that Illinois game is when when he hit that game, he's kind of been off for the entire, since then, for this entire stretch, man.
He averaged 18 points per game over his first 3. And then since then, since having 26 against Baylor, he's averaged 6.1 points a game. And he only played 13 minutes against Miami.
Yeah, that's a tough one there, man. That's a tough one. Of course, the next game is what we call a get right game, a get well game. They have the Albany Retrievers, I believe, coming in. I was about to say Albany Rottweilers, whether the Albany Retrievers coming in.
Great Danes.
Great. There we go. I knew it was
the
Great Danes. I was figuring they're gonna play them. What is it, next Wednesday? I'll be there. Are you gonna be there for that game?
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay, all right. So we'll I'll see you in there. You know where I'll be. I'll be right up there with the press. And we're going to check that game out. I think it could be a get well game. And then, of course, they got Georgia Tech on New Year's Eve. So hopefully they can get right. Hopefully these guys can continue to, get themselves back together. There's been some, like they said, fractures in the defense, where you can see where they've been late on closeouts. Teams have kind of twisted their defense up some. I just want these guys to get back together, man, and start making their outside shots. They did better in making their free throws, but the outside shooting, the 3-point shooting, and then the 2-point shooting, just abysmal, man. And Armand, there's something going on mentally with him. He needs to get his head straight, and start making his outside shots and his two shots. He missed a couple bunnies, right there at the rim, which I did not expect him to miss, which I think could have made a difference.
Yeah, it's been a little bit spotty all season in the rotation. I thought Ryan Dunn was going to get a lot. When he had some of those games early on, I thought he'd be a rotation player every game. But, now he's getting 5 minutes here, 3 minutes some games. But I always trust in Tony Bennett, and I always feel like he knows best. He's been doing this forever. But, yeah, they got Albany, then Georgia Tech, then Pittsburgh, then Syracuse. None of those teams are, ranked in the top 50 on KenPom, so we should be able to batten the hatches down and figure out what the rotation is going to be the rest of the way. They got to get the shooting back to where it was and hopefully get Reese back to 100% because that's been another big issue. When you have Reese making the plays and controlling 60 to 80% of the offense, they're a much better, more effective team. When you're relying on Kihei to do that, you're just a little bit more limited. Kihei's been great this year, but it just limits them a little bit.
You're right about that. Kihei has been great, and I think if I think they need to go to they got to work Jaden a little bit more as well. They got to go to Jaden Gardner a little bit more. They'll go to him, a little bit here, a little bit there. They need to consistently continue to work through him until the outside shots start coming back for the players.
Yeah, it's been a season where there's no one big scorer. It's kind of like some player has a night against one team, and then another guy has a good game against the next team, and then how it shakes out is a bunch of guys, 6-7 guys averaging 8 to 10 points a game. That's fine, but when no one's on, then it's been tough for us to score. Our defense can only hold so well against good teams, and now we're starting to play good teams every night with 3-4 star recruits. So
we have too much. I think so too. We have too much offensive talent to be where we are right now. That's just my thing. And as far as the ladies go, the ladies took a hard one last night. They on the chin. They lost to Duke by 16 points, I believe. And of course, Duke, one of the top teams in the ACC. What did you think about that game last night?
I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but they didn't shoot the ball well.
Mm-hmm.
This is a team who has been shooting well from the outside this year, and they only shot 20%, 3 of 15. So that's tough. And then and Duke's no slouch. I mean, they weren't ranked, but going into the game they were 10-1. They shot the ball well, and Virginia's had big wins this year. They've beaten good teams. I'm not worried. College basketball road games are tough.
Mm-hmm.
Going down to Miami is tough. It's a long trip. Going to Duke, it's Duke. The thing is just getting consistency, getting the groove, finding out who's going to be your guys when the chips are down, and they're figuring that out. They're both men's and women's are playing a lot of guys, and I think we're just still figuring out who our 7 are, who 7, 8 are going to be down when it comes to postseason time.
Tell them, Casey, we got 3.5 long months before we really get into March Madness. So, anything you like to say in closing?
Well, I want to say happy holidays to everyone. Thank you for listening to your podcast, everyone who listens to mine. It is a great time of year, and be grateful for everything you have because, as we've seen over the last few months, not every day is promised, so be grateful.
That's right. Great message there, man. I want to say also happy holidays to everyone as well thank you for giving us your time. And I will be back probably. I think I may do one more before the holiday, and then I'll come right back after the Christmas holiday. Then I'll do a few more before the year is out. But we want to thank you for making Locked On Virginia your first listen today. Now make your second listen today with Peter Butowski. Locked On Sports Today brings you the biggest sports from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get the analysis and opinions before anyone else and with local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today podcast, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We got to thank you guys for tuning in, hanging out with us, and for my guy, Casey Pazzalia, on the Virginia Gameday Podcast. Let them know where they can find you, Casey.
At Virginia Gameday on Instagram, I'm doing a giveaway right now for the holidays, so I'll pick that winner on Christmas Eve, and then Virginia Gameday Podcast on all the major platforms.
Beautiful, beautiful. And thank you guys for making Locked On Virginia your first listen today. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.